Welcome to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation Summit 2020. A circular economy approach has resonance, meaning and applicability globally. It also has resonance across government tiers. I'm delighted to be joined by Kobie Brand, Regional Director of ICLEI Africa, part of the global network of local and regional governments that comes from across the world and is focused on sustainable urban development. Kobie, hello. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Cape Town.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Kobie, ICLEI is focused on sustainable urban development, but it's recently started working more and more with a circular economy approach. What has that brought to your work? What difference is it making locally?
Right, so ICLEI, we're very happy to actually celebrate our 30th year of existence, formed by cities, for cities focusing on sustainability, with a big emphasis in the early years on climate change, of course, and today still. But many other agendas came to the fore, and I think today we're very happy to see circular economy and circular development as one of our 5 key pathways with which we serve and help cities to transition to a more sustainable approach. So the circular economy is really embedded in almost all our initiatives these days, and we do not have a sectoral approach to working towards sustainability. So for us, it's a systemic infiltration basically of the circular economy approach and the specific principles of circularity that we now see that is so closely manifested in sustainability as well. So it's really been a transition, and I think one of our key challenges today still and opportunities is to make sure that people don't understand circular economy as just in the form of waste and recycling. You know, it's so much more than waste and recycling. It is everything. It's got to do with nature. It's got to do with how you mainstream nature-based approaches, living within the resource planetary boundaries, and actually rethinking and adopting new urban lifestyles that can be regenerative. We're also talking about regenerative cities, zero net cities, and those type of things. And for that, circularity is absolutely needed to be mainstreamed in all sectors, from planning to procurement to execution, and then of course to how you deal with consumerism, lifestyles, and then waste, of course, as well.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you flagged there what a systemic approach is, and it can be quite overwhelming actually when you sort of think about all the different areas into which to mainstream it. I was wondering, in terms of getting us into Africa specifically, where do you see leadership on the transition to circular economy coming from in Africa?
I think it's coming from all sectors. We see a lot of innovation from the private sector, and because Africa is unique, in many ways, but because we have such high rates of informality, we see small entrepreneurship blossoming in the most unexpected places. For instance, we have in the transport sector, in the mobility space, we have My Border, for instance, which is the motorcycles everybody transports themselves around with in places like Uganda and many parts of Africa. So My Border is a new form of, it's an Uber for Africa, I guess, and in that is more productivity, is less waste, is more efficiency, etc. built in. You see the same sort of thing in Zayride, which is an initiative coming from Ethiopia. So a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, even during the times of COVID, during these last few months, we've seen these things just happening all around us. There are many initiatives. I think one of the institutional initiatives that we're very delighted to see is the African Circular Economy Alliance, which is a very big alliance of private sector, government institutions, NGOs, leaders in the field coming together. But I would say at a government level, it's really at all levels of government. But again, us working so closely with cities, we see that it's at the local level where the rubber hits the road, where the action happens, where cities can take leadership by demonstrating what what is possible with demonstration projects, but also opening up the economy and providing incentives for the business sector and civil society to come on board in a whole of government and whole of society approach. And we see it in cities right from where I am in Cape Town, which is in many ways at the forefront of this type of thinking, but also in many other cities across the continent, which is very exciting. And of course, ICLEI is right there with them. And it's wonderful to be one of the leaders in this field in the continent.
So would you say from that is it a real mix of bottom up, so the entrepreneurs, their work then becoming aware, like the policymakers becoming aware of it, and that then shifting policy thinking? Or how much is it top down with policymakers actually taking the leadership role and saying this is where we're going to go as a country and getting that message out so that the economy follows? What's the balance in what you see?
I would say, mostly speaking, I would say it's a bottom-up approach, driven by fantastic initiatives, like some that I've mentioned now. There's Safi Sana in Accra and Ghana, which is also a community-based project, which works with waste management, but wastewater specifically, and turn that into biogas and compost and everything. And that was taken up to policy level at national level across the country. So there are many examples where policy was actually influenced by these entrepreneurial efforts of communities. But we see the other way around as well. We see great leadership from national governments and city governments. One example is a country like Ethiopia, another one is Rwanda. There are already 6 countries in Africa that have banned single-use plastic waste. And that's a policy decision top-down, which actually infiltrates the market across all sectors down the line. So I would say it's a bit of both, certainly, but we need a lot more. We need it mainstreamed a lot further.
Okay, great. And I think you're sort of touching on it there. If it's coming from entrepreneurialism, that is an indication that actually there is a job creation opportunity in this. Just transition is a topic that is increasingly discussed, how for those sectors that this might look a little bit threatening to their traditional business model, sort of nervousness about if you transition to a circular economy, will it take away jobs? How is that debate playing out in Africa? I mean, there are certain industries that, for example, extraction, that might be concerned about this. So how does that debate play out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that still needs to happen, a lot of discussion that still needs to happen there, and policy decisions, some difficult to make, especially if you look at the extractive economy and commodity-based economies and so on. Africa has been viewed as, a great partner for being an extractive industry and then shipping out raw materials. But we're looking at beneficiation and actually adding value to products in the African context, thereby creating fair and just jobs and making it a fair and just and inclusive transition towards a more circular economy for everybody, for the benefit of Africans mostly and firstly. But at the same time, extraction will always be there, but in a way it's got to be more balanced. And also when it comes back to waste management, I think conscious decisions have to be made about what waste do we import, and to what extent do we import goods of say lesser quality, and to what extent do we try and manufacture them ourselves here, keep the standards up, have good waste management, cradle to grave type of policies embedded in our societies and in our policies at national level. And there may be some difficult decisions that have to be taken, some unpopular ones, and I think those discussions need to be had at a global level and also at an African level, and we see it starting to happen, but there's still a lot of the old way of doing things that's embedded in our societies and in our policies that we would need to review, especially in the light of a green recovery now. If we look at the times of COVID, there's a huge opportunity. Africa still has the biggest opportunity in Africa is the fact that we still have to urbanize at a rapid rate, and 60% of all infrastructure has yet to be built in Africa. So imagine we can do that in a way that is going to stimulate this circular economy and really mainstream the circular economy into the infrastructure sectors. That, what an opportunity. You know, few continents have that opportunity, and we need to make sure that we get it right and that we build green, inclusive cities and don't go back to the old normal of 2019. So there's huge opportunity ahead for us.
Great. Such a comprehensive answer as well, and I love the fact that you touched on not just the difficult changes, but also some of the real opportunities around urban development is going to be happening. So reimagining that and using all the policy tools to support that. We're nearly out of time, but I must ask you about the connection to climate change, because that is increasingly being recognised. This year the presidency of COP26 is UK, and next year it will be an African country that has the presidency. Are you excited? Do you think that will bring a new dimension to the talks, and will we see circular economies remaining in the focus of climate negotiations?
Absolutely. It's key and central, and it has to be. Circular economy isn't in a box and you can put it away or take it out when you need to, or when you want to. Climate change is a comprehensive, holistic problem, and it demands that sort of response. Again, looking at nature, the connection with nature, living within planetary boundaries, consumer patterns, transport, all those things are greatly linked to climate change, and it's deeply understood because climate change is already felt and lived through here in Africa. So we're looking forward to Africa taking over the host of the COP. We remember fondly COP17, which was held in Durban as well, with great success for the continent, with great legacy also for the continent. And yes, absolutely, I can see it central stage, both in the UK next year, and then also certainly in Africa. And we'll do our level best as ICLEI for our constituency to make sure that those voices come through loud and clearly, and hopefully also manifest in strong decisions around circularity.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned Durban, because actually at the end of last year there was a meeting of African environment ministers that produced a Durban declaration that also noted the contribution of circular economy, including the link actually to biodiversity as well as climate. So great connection there. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone watching. We hope that this gave you some interesting reflections about what the opportunities are in Africa, and thank you very much.